everyone, and welcome back to Student Stories. I'm Jasper Zellmer, your host. Today, I am joined by some members and leaders of the AAC at AHS. We have President Andrew, Vice President Samip, Secretary Linda, and a member, Mona. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. So starting off with one of your recent events, I believe last weekend you had a rally at Robbins Farm Park. And I wanted to know if anyone wanted to talk about, what you discussed when you were there, what the goals for that rally were. So Andrew, would you like to start?
Yeah, totally. I can start. So the rally was organized with the Asian American Coalition and the Class of 2023 Student Council. The main goal in mind was just to be able to get together to have, a discussion about, the recent API hate, and how we can address it in our own lives, in the school community, and in the Arlington community. It was supposed to be open to students, but we did have, teachers come. We also had, other people from around the town come, and those are really nice. We got some nice discussions. If anyone would like to add anything else.
I just really also love the fact that we had discussions at the event because not only did we bring awareness to the issues at hand, but we were also able to discuss the implications of those issues and how we can really go and solve these issues within our community and around the country. So I thought that that was a really, really great thing that we did at this event as well.
Great. Would anybody else like to add anything? Okay. So do you feel like, I heard you mentioning some goals of the rally there. Do you feel like the rally successfully achieved those goals?
Yeah, I think it went really, really well. I mean, everyone, like from the feedback that we got, everyone really enjoyed the rally and discussions. Everyone participated and gave their input. I think it was really awesome that we were able to get together, and we were hoping to do something more, systematic and take those strategies that we discussed and to carry them out in the community so we can, fight AAPI racism better and spread more awareness.
That's awesome. So another event that I hear that you all have coming up is the Open Mic Fundraiser, which I believe you are working with a couple of other AHS groups with. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Samip, would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, sure. So right now we're planning the Open Mic Fundraiser, as you said, and it's along with other activist groups around in the school and also in the community. So Sunrise, Arlington, as well as AWG, and I believe BSU might be involved as well, and obviously us, AAC. And basically, it's just going to be a get together where we all come and share different forms of art, whether it be maybe singing or poetry. And with that, we want to also raise awareness about issues in the AAPI community and fundraise for a group called Stop AAPI Hate, which to combat racism and hate crimes in the country.
That's great. Linda, would you like to say something about that? Or
As Samip said, it's just like a nice get together to just spread more awareness. Yeah.
great. So moving on to more worldly events. I'd like to bring up that our former president blamed the coronavirus pandemic on China on multiple occasions. How do you feel this has impacted people who identify as Asian American or Pacific Islander? Mona, would you want to say something about that?
Sure. I mean, I think that within our country, there is a lot of racism, and it's very much deeply woven into the fabric of our society, and it's not often talked about. And so it's really sad for me to see that it's only when these hate crimes and when it's like a very public thing that these issues are brought to light, because I think that it's very much inherent in our society, but we don't often see it because it's often hidden in these microaggressions that we see every day. So in some ways it's very terrible that these things are happening, of course, but in another way we're also bringing to light these issues and they're finally being talked about, and we can finally bring awareness and really fight against this racism that's been here for such a long time.
just want to give my point of view too. So I am a Chinese American, and so I feel like this affected me more on a more deeper level. When Trump referred to the coronavirus as the China virus or Kung flu, these xenophobic terms, I really felt like I was starting to, become more integrated into American society, my family and I, and we felt like we were finally becoming more American and being more accepted by society. But when Trump began to say these things in these xenophobic terms, it was almost like we were back to square one and we're just outsiders again. We're just foreigners. When, I was born in America and, I'm just as American as everyone else. But then when he started using these terms, I started to feel like that I was not American, that somehow, what Trump said makes me not American. And then when the person in power says things like that, it often reflects on his followers. And as the president, as the person with the most power and influence in America, it really reflected, on the population in the US. And then you see all these hate crimes spiking, and then, everything's just getting worse, and the racism and, all this hate, it really, even if I don't experience these hate crimes personally, I still feel like I'm being ostracized from society, and I just feel like, um, as a Chinese American, like I'm not being accepted as an American, but I'm thought as a virus. I'm not seen as a person that I am. And, it's hurtful. And, I'm, struggling to talk about it because, it hurts to talk about it, just to know that, the president doesn't see us as Americans when we're just the same as everyone else, if that makes sense.
Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I'm also Chinese American, and I feel like, um, with like some of the racist terms that Trump has used, it's really definitely added to the hate. And personally, like every time I heard it mentioned, it was kind of just like a jab in the stomach, and it made me feel really uncomfortable. And for a while I was like also afraid, um especially last spring. It was like, oh, should I wear a mask outside? Obviously this was before everything was like under lockdown, but in like February, um and also using these terms kind of like connected everyone of Asian descent to the coronavirus. And because it originated in Wuhan, China, it kind of connected a lot of Asian Americans to the coronavirus, regardless of their actual like heritage or connections. And it definitely affected the community a lot.
Thank you. Samip, would you like to share anything as well?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, like Mona said, I think the racism that started recently, or these hate crimes and everything that President Trump brought up, um, it's the result of, years of society letting racism towards Asians, go under the radar and society overlooking it. And I think this pandemic just gave people another reason to continue discrimination against Asian Americans and assign blame to a vulnerable minority group that had already been subject to racism for so long.
Yeah. So building off of that, how do you, in your opinion, how can people who are not Asian, who do not identify as Asian, be active allies to the community, and we as a society move forward and work to combat the racism that our society is currently experiencing?
I think anti-racism, starts within yourself and being able to educate yourself and understand different cultures and why, it is wrong that Trump is, being xenophobic. You see that, many Asian Americans are, being blamed for the coronavirus. I think it's very important that we understand that they are not to blame and that this is none of their fault, and to, be able to, develop empathy for these cultures and being able to, understand what they go through. So then once you understand, you can help other people understand this and educate other people. I think that's the first step, just educating yourself.
Um, Could I also, yeah, I really agree with Andrew. And I also think that there's two steps that I found to be very helpful. The first one is reflection, like Andrew was saying. Racism and ignorance, they all start within the individual. And so I think it's imperative that we research and that we understand and we reflect on our own biases and we understand ourselves and where these biases are coming from. Because when you're able to do that, you're able to be honest with yourself and to be vulnerable. And you're able to grow as an individual and also as an ally. Um, and the second step would be involving yourself in systematic action because as much as like these events that happen that are one-time things, they're wonderful. But if we're able to make this into a systematic thing where people are constantly involved and people are dedicating themselves to these issues, I think that because systemic racism is inherently systematic, the only way to uproot that racism is through systematic action and systematic allyship as well.
Thank you. Linda, would you like to share anything about that?
Adding on to being an ally, I think definitely speaking up when you see racism happening, and I definitely have experienced like few incidents and thinking back, um I feel like in those situations I would have really appreciated if somebody like either afterwards or something had like said something. It would have made me feel a lot better, and definitely like being able to stand up and be a supportive ally.
Yeah, if I
Yeah.
could add on, oh, sorry. Yeah, if I
Yeah.
could add on, just going back to that idea of standing up and not being a bystander, and not only holding people you don't know accountable, but also holding, you know, maybe your friends or family accountable, because it might be this racism might be apparent even in your close circles, and it's important to address it, so it doesn't happen moving forward. And also going back to what Mona said, this idea of, you know, systematically fighting it, I think that's very important just to instill it into our society. And we're planning, the Asian American Coalition, we're planning on having rallies in the future regularly to address it and continue moving forward with the community.
That's great. Thank you. I want to ask or bring up how gender plays into some of the recent hate crimes against the Asian American community. So, does anybody, Linda or Mona or anyone, want to talk about that a little bit?
I think definitely this issue, um it's still personally a little bit hard to talk about, and especially with like the recent Atlanta spa shooting, that has definitely been um really difficult event to process. And um I think for a lot of people in the community, we're still trying to process it and kind of um reflect and find a way to like move forward with the events.
Um, as an Asian American man, you know, I can't personally, you know, understand what Asian American women go through and, you know, their experiences. But you know, based on the people I'm around and, you know, based on my mother and my two sisters, you know, it's really difficult to see this happening, this fetishization, with especially in the Atlantic shooting. You know, there's this, you know, term used to refer to it called yellow fever. Um, and you know, Asian women are often, you know, fetishized, and they've been fetishized for a long time, and because of that, you know, it's just always been there, and you know, it's really deeply rooted in our society. You know, oftentimes Asian women are seen as, you know, docile, you know, submissive, you know, assertive, you know, they're easy to like control and manipulate. And, this stereotype and bias, is often seen in the unproportionate amount of hate crimes against Asian women because, they're really seen as, unable to fight and stick up for themselves. So then when you obviously, have someone when you see as weak, they're probably more likely to be targeted for like a hate crime, with all of that and all this deep rooted bias and, racism, and these stereotypes, it's also very hard for me to, comprehend and like see it happening because, I have a 6-year-old sister. And, it's kind of sad that this is kind of like the world that she's going to grow up in, and that sometimes she might have to fear that, because she is an Asian American, not only is she Asian, but a woman too, that she has to fear for her life sometimes because, like these 6 women lost their lives because of this. It is the world that we're living in, we're just constantly trying to, fix it.
Yeah, Mona or Samip, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, I think this just requires us to be allies in 2 different areas. I think to be an ally of women and also to be an ally of Asian women. Um, I think it takes double the amount of effort and reflection and action. But I do really think that it's possible. And I do think that this will also create an area where both men and women can come together to address these hate crimes and to address this racism that exists within this country. So yeah, I think this will actually hopefully be a uniting force and not one that destroys these bonds that we hope to create.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing about that. Just to wrap up, does anybody want to share how they personally take care of yourself on a daily basis, given everything that's going on in the world right now? Samik, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So, personally, with with the rise of violence against and hate crimes against Asian Americans, it was definitely like scary for me. But I do want to acknowledge that even I speak from like a pretty high position of privilege because a lot of these attacks they've been towards people of East Asian descent, like you said. President Trump targeted specifically Chinese people, Chinese Americans, and not so much towards people like that look like me. But with that being said, I've experienced my fair share of racism and stereotyping, and although I've never like felt unsafe because of it, it has affected me growing up, and sometimes it made me feel like something was wrong with me because of the way I looked or where I'm from. So now I'm just trying to acknowledge, realize, and acknowledge that who I am is okay, and I'm trying to educate others that you should be proud to be who you are and comfortable in your own skin.
Linda, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I feel like with everything going on in the media, personally, I've been taking like breaks away from looking at the media and like scrolling through the news, looking through Instagram and social media. And I think that's absolutely okay to do if you need the break. And sometimes you just need to put your phone down and just take a moment to reflect with yourself and to not have like all this information um and taking in all this information all the time. It's completely okay to take a break.
Yeah, I agree. Mona, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was thinking about this analogy that I heard a few years back, where it's when you're cleaning your room and your room is like messy, there's 2 ways that you can go about fixing it. The first is just to shove everything in to your drawers or whatever, which is what people do sometimes. And then the other thing is to actually take everything out and to refold everything, which takes a lot more time and in the process can make your room look even messier. And I think this really applies to our society today. I mean, I think that we can see literally every aspect of morality completely like destroying itself. It's just terrible. But I think that sometimes you really need to go backwards in order to propel yourself forward. So this is something I've been thinking about and telling myself, that these moments when our country is at its lowest can be a catalyst for it to reach its highest potential. So I think that we might be in that stage where we're cleaning our room, but everything's on the ground and it's disgusting. But hopefully, if we work together, we'll be able to refold all those clothes and create these bonds of friendship and fellowship in order to create a country that we are proud to live in and that we want to live in. So that's what I've been thinking about.
Yeah, that was a great analogy. Thank you so much for sharing. Andrew, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I would piggyback off of what Samip said. When you wake up in the morning, and you look at yourself in the mirror, it's just that, understanding and that feeling that, you belong and that you're worth it. And you have to constantly remind yourself that, despite everything that's going on, just remember to be true to yourself, and that, you are American just like everyone else is, despite what you look like or where your parents came from. And I think, part of my daily life is just that understanding and being able to take action, although it's not my responsibility to, help others become more aware about it. And, I shouldn't really have to feel this way, but I feel like, it's, a big part of my life, with AAC and things like that, to try to spread awareness, try to help others understand. And it's just all boils down to, just understanding that, I'm worth it. Everyone else is worth it. We're all American, and that, we just try to spread the message.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I think that is it for this episode of Student Stories. Thank you all so much for being here today. This was a fantastic opportunity, and I'm so glad that we got to hear all of your voices. Yeah, thank you so much for being here.